I am going to share my screen and show you where this information is on Google Classroom. So when you go to, let's see, Google Classroom under this week, so not March 8th, March 1st through the 5th, you will see for all block, it says Iditarod. And I know there's a lot on here, but it says Thursday, Iditarod, 12:45, all block, Mrs. Aubin. If you click there, you will see we've got the website for the Iditarod and a couple of videos I'm going to share with you. Before we do that, does anybody have schema on the Iditarod? What it is? Nixon? Mhm. It's a dog sled race. Yes, it is. Anything else you might know about it, Lennox? They race 1,000 miles. Yes. Abby? It is in Alaska. Wow, you guys know a lot about it already. All right, Lila Maris, did you want to share anything?
Miss Harrison said that it was third grade tradition.
Third grade tradition. Yes, Robert.
And this was in the book Stone Fox.
It's similar to Stone Fox. It's not the Iditarod, but it is the same idea, dog sledding. Very good. If you read Stone Fox, you would have some connections to it. All right, so I've got just a couple short videos that we're gonna watch. And then I'm going to tell you a little more about the Iditarod and share one of my favorite books with you.
The Last Great Race.
Oops, sorry.
The classic story of man versus
I've got to
nature.
put my speaker in.
How does the Iditarod Trail sled dog race actually work?
Here we go.
Last Great Race. The classic story of man versus nature.
But how does the Iditarod Trail sled dog race actually work? How long does it take to finish? What do they keep on that sled? And most importantly, why not just drive? Hi, this is me, Eric Ketto. I don't know much about Alaska. In January 2015, I packed up my car, left the lower 48, and drove through Canada to my new home. Now, I work with this guy.
Lower 48, already speaking like a true Alaskan. I'm John Norris. I've lived in Alaska for the majority of my life. I survived the frigid conditions. I gathered my own food, and I tamed the local wildlife. I'm basically Davy Crockett meets Bear Grylls. Very knowledgeable about the 49 states.
Okay, so John, tell me about the Iditarod. How did it start?
Hold on one second. In the winter of 1925, there was an epidemic in Nome. They had to figure out a way to get a bunch of medicine from Anchorage to Nome, and apparently there were only 2 planes in the entire state, and neither one of them could be flown in winter. So the governor of Alaska at the time decided they had to have the medicine mushed to Nome.
Is mushed a verb?
The medicine was sent 298 miles by train, and then mushed the rest of the way by dog team. But here's the thing. It was a relay, and they actually passed the medicine from dog team to dog team, and no team ran more than 100 miles.
Yeah, apparently the modern race isn't really based on that original run. It's more of an homage to mushing in general, because now the teams travel over 1,000 miles.
Almost the equivalent of New York to Orlando. So for the most part, it takes place in the Alaska backcountry. But you can watch the ceremonial start of the race in beautiful downtown Anchorage, Alaska. Not a lot of race drama as it's purely for show, but you can get close enough to feel that hot sled dog breath on your face.
After the ceremonial start comes the official start, which they had to move further north this year because there wasn't enough snow.
Now, that's
Correct.
not true for
the
this
second time
year.
in the history of the race, they moved the official start to Fairbanks.
Ours is going to be
Just
different
like
this
everybody
year.
else, those dogs are going to be really excited to get out of Fairbanks.
So there are 79 teams this year.
Right, and each team is made up of about 12 to 16 dogs and 1 musher.
And each team of dogs is pulling about 350 pounds, right?
Yeah, and these dogs are basically the Michael Phelps of the animal kingdom. They're consuming about 10,000 calories a day during the race. So of course they can't carry all that food, so course officials drop supply bags at checkpoints throughout the entire race.
After the 1,000 miles and tons of dog food, they end up in Nome.
Yep, and the record for the fastest time was set in 2014 by Dallas Seavey, 8 days, 13 hours, 4 minutes, and 19 seconds.
What do they get for all that effort?
They get a new truck and some cash that probably just about covers all the dog food.
Huh. Well, where do we go from here, John?
I would suggest you just keep refreshing alaskapublic.org for race updates.
Okay, so that was a fun one. I have one other that I wanted to share with you. And this is a little different.
Europeans arrived in North America, wild dogs roamed through this vast wilderness untethered. To this day, they form the genetic base for the modern Alaskan Husky, the tireless sled dogs of the Great North. They are a domestic animal, but so integral to human survival in this part of the world, it would be remiss not to include them in the world's greatest. Alaskan Huskies were developed by dog sled racers or mushers from different bloodlines of native Inuit dogs. They love to run and they love to haul, two sought-after traits that generations of breeding have perfected.
I actually get to go dog sledding this
The ultimate challenge for the dogs and their mushers is the Iditarod, a grueling 1,500-kilometer race from Anchorage to Nome. Each competing team has between 12 and 16 dogs that are rotated throughout the course to prevent fatigue. Vets give the competing dogs the once-over at each and every checkpoint to ensure they are up for the challenge. The dogs are well cared for by their mushers, and seeing the relationships they've developed with their masters is heartening. Dog sledding is not only a great way to connect to these beautiful animals, it's also a practical way to get around the wilds of Alaska. Clearly, a part of the US blessed by Mother Nature.
She watched a movie about
All right. So do you think the dogs like their job?
Yes.
Yeah. So the Iditarod, we talked a little bit about it. You guys already know a lot of information. It is going to be different this year. It's said that it's from Anchorage to Nome. Sometimes they don't have enough snow and they have to change the route. This year, and I'm not sure exactly why, but they are changing the route again, and I will show you a map. This is a website that you are going to be on next week. Can you put your hands down so you can hear what I'm saying? Thanks, guys. We'll be using this website. I'm putting it on our Google Classroom for next week in the morning. So we'll be tracking our musher. We're going to choose a musher tomorrow. And then we are going to be tracking their progress through this race. It starts on Saturday, this Saturday, not tomorrow, but the next day. And on this website, you'll see there's all kinds of information. Here's the race map under Race Center. We've made a copy for you. You'll get this so that you can track where your musher is. You can highlight where your musher is at the time. So There is no ceremonial start in Anchorage this year. They're going to do something called a Gold Trail Loop. And that is, instead of going from Anchorage to Nome, they're going to go to the Iditarod Flat from, I think it was, they changed it, Deshka Landing. It's near the Willow Community Center location. No spectators will get to be there this year because of COVID. But they will start there at Deshka, and they will go up all the way to Iditarod Flat. They'll turn around and then go back. So it's going to be a loop instead of from point A to point B. And you can see here are all of the checkpoints. So remember in the video where they showed the vet checking the dogs? So at a checkpoint, they get to rest, right? The vet will check their dogs. They got to feed their dogs, get water. They get to sleep on the hay. You saw they put hay down for their dogs. A lot of the mushers just lay with their dogs and sleep in the hay. That's what we've heard from some of our musher acquaintances. So they will go from Deshka to Squentna. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. Then from there to Finger Lake, from Finger Lake to Rainy Pass to Rowan, Rowan to Nikolai, Nikolai to McGrath, McGrath to Ophir, Ophir to Iditarod. Then Iditarod Flat is the loop, and they'll go back. They'll just retrace their steps. So that's what's going to happen this year. I will show you more on this website tomorrow because you will find there's a whole section on mushers. So we will, right now it looks like there are 47 mushers this year. It said in that video they had 49. This year they have 47. Most of them seem to be from Alaska this year, which is interesting. I wonder if that's due to the virus, maybe. But yeah, people aren't traveling as much. But you have some people from Minnesota, it looks like. But you are going, oh wow, a lot of them, if it says veteran, that means that they've done it before. If it says rookie, means it's their first time. So you can just tell there's a lot more veterans than rookies, but there are some rookies this year. So basically we'll be using this musher tab here to find out about our musher. Once we want to explore tomorrow, we'll be clicking on our musher's name. It'll tell us information. Right now it doesn't say where your musher is or how many dogs your musher has in the race still, because sometimes their dogs have to leave there, get injured, or they're just not pulling their weight, so they take them. And we have a friend, TC Wait. It would be nice to see if we could get her to come virtually, but she would come every year to talk with us. She takes the dogs that, what do they call it? The fallen dogs from the race. And she lives in Conifer during the summer and lives in Alaska in the winter. And she brings her 20 dogs back and forth. She mushes, but she doesn't mush in the Iditarod. She just helps. So she's a real neat lady. You may have seen her around Conifer, but that's not her there. But hopefully she usually comes in and speaks with us. Maybe we can get her this year. We'll try. So these are just people who are racing. And once they start, here are all the mushers. Once they start the race tomorrow, you'll be able to find their standings, where they are. And I will be showing you that on Monday. Some of you will figure it out on your own, just exploring. But so you'll choose one of these mushers tomorrow after you have time to kind of read about them and think, who do I want? Who sounds interesting? Who do I want to follow? Okay. And then again, the map, the checkpoints are all here. There's an Iditarod photo gallery. There's all kinds of stuff on this website. It's pretty cool. So I just wanted to give you some background about it. And then I went to Alaska, I don't know how many years ago now. Can't even remember. Oh, and I was going to look for, I have a video. I got to go, and I can't even remember the musher's name. this is what happens as you get older. He's pretty famous, and he has won the Iditarod, and I got to go to his dog training station center home in Denali. And so I took some videos of the dogs training on like a hamster wheel, the big dog hamster wheel. I know I have it on this computer, so I'll see if I can find that. I'll write myself a note and share that with you tomorrow. I also got to go to Susan Butcher's house while I was in Alaska, and I bought a book about her. Her husband and her children were there, and they were selling these books about her because she is no longer with us. But I'm going to share this story about her and her dog Granite, and it's pretty touching, and I found it all so interesting. I even got, how many of you have mushed? Have any of you gone mushing, gone sledding, or been the musher? Yeah, you can do it in Breckenridge. There are a lot of places. So I noticed when we went, my daughter and I did it, she was little, and those dogs really have a mind of their own. I wasn't heavy enough to push down, to push the brakes. So I just held on as best I could. I lost her a couple times. The sled fell over and she was like, again, let's do it again. She didn't care, but I cared. I was chasing them. Mushing is not easy. And then we would go, when we would turn, the dogs just take off, and tree branches would be coming toward me, and it was a little dangerous. I have to say, one person in our trip hurt her arm. But it was really fun. I think the best way to do it would be out in an open space where you don't have to make the turns. At one point, we had to go over a tree that had fallen. They usually go through and clear the trails first, but for some reason they missed that. But we made it over it. I don't know how. It was pretty fun. I think it's for anyone who is into thrill seeking. It's one of those kinds of experiences. Yeah, my husband and my son went snowmobiling, and I said, oh, I thought dog sledding was going to be relaxing. It was not. Okay, so this is called Granite Iditarod Champions by Susan Butcher and David Monson, illustrated by Sarah Douglas. It is, this is the dedication to all the dogs who preceded Granite, to his teammates who made his victories possible, and to all who follow in his paw prints. Okay. Every year, a sled dog race crosses the frozen wilderness of Alaska. It is called the Iditarod. It starts in Anchorage and crosses 3 mountain ranges, 2 river valleys, and the frozen Bering Sea to end over 1,000 miles later in Nome. The race honors the dogs and mushers who hauled mail, supplies, and life-saving medicine through the Alaska winters 100 years ago. One dog in the Iditarod race came to epitomize the strength, courage, and intelligence of those dogs long ago, Granite. And then here's the map that they usually follow. Like I said, it's going to be a little different this year. Susan Butcher lived alone in the Alaska wilderness with her sled dogs. Her home was a little log cabin. Susan was a musher, so in the winter, she traveled across the snow-covered trails on a dog sled. The dogs loved pulling her sled, and she loved them in return. And this is what it actually looks like when you go by her place. Like it is, all those dog houses look just like that. One spring day while Susan was feeding her dogs, she heard a familiar sound. Puppies were being born. Quietly, she walked over to the barn. Listening at the door, she heard cooing. Slowly, she looked inside, and there on a cozy bed of straw were 5 newborn pups. Their mother gently nuzzled them and cleaned each one with her tongue as they lay curled up next to her. All the pups were shiny, fat, and healthy, except for one. His fur was dull. He had knock knees, and he let the others push him away from their mother. Susan loved the puppies and was proud of each one. She was always showing them off to other mushers who visited. Again and again, the visitors would say they all looked great, except for the timid one. They said that he would never become a real sled dog, and she should give him away to someone as a pet. But Susan believed in him, so she gave him a strong name, Granite, like your granite countertops, right? The rock. There's a cute picture of Granite. When the pups were old enough, she started taking them on daily walks in the woods. Susan and the puppies developed a close bond. Susan watched Granite and was impressed by his intelligence. He always knew where he was because he remembered the trails they had taken before. Even when they went somewhere new, he could find his way home alone while his brothers and sisters closely followed Susan so they would not get lost. Every evening they ran together to develop his strength. She was sure that someday he would race on her team. Granite grew to be a 58-pound, deep-chested, fast dog. He overcame his knock-kneed legs with a powerful stride. He pulled the sled better than the others, and his confidence grew. He learned to lead the team. Leaders need to be able to guide the team over rough trails, find the way when they are lost, and run fast. Granite did all three. After years of work, Granite became the main lead dog of Susan's racing team. At the start of his first Iditarod, Granite seemed to sense it was a race. He stood in front of the team with his head held high, waiting for the command to go. Finally, the race started and Granite charged down the trail. Susan was amazed by him. They stopped often to eat and rest. When it was time to go again, Granite would be the first to jump to his feet, barking and prancing, anxious to head down the trail. Soon they were leading the race. One night when they crested a small hill, there in the trail ahead of them stood an angry moose. Susan stopped the team to let the moose get away, but it didn't run. Instead, it charged into the team, kicking and stomping. Granite lunged at the moose, trying to protect his teammates, but the moose kicked him and he flew against a tree. When the attack was over, Susan saw the damage the moose had done. She gently cared for her injured teammates before deciding that for the good of her beloved dogs, they should leave their dream of winning behind. They withdrew from the race. She took her bruised and battered team home, but promised the dogs that next year they would win. People doubted Susan and Granite. They often said Susan will never win the Iditarod because she babies her dogs. Susan didn't listen to them and continued to care for her dogs as she always had. It was a long, hard year. Susan and the dogs worked tirelessly to recover. In the fall, Susan and her dogs started running every day, training for the race. One day on a short run, Susan saw Granite falter. She stopped the team and rushed to him. It was quickly clear to her something was wrong. Granite tried, but he could not get to his feet. Granite's temperature was soaring. His heart was racing, and he was fading fast. Granite needed help, but help was far away. She bundled him up and they flew to a veterinary hospital. The doctor held little hope for his recovery. Susan set up a cot next to Granite and stayed with him day and night, petting him and willing him to live. Granite lived, but the veterinarian gently told Susan he would never race again. The illness had damaged his heart. And they have to fly places because in Alaska, everything's so spread out. When Granite was able, they flew back home. Susan and the dogs continued to train while Granite rested in the cabin, watching the leaves turn colors and slowly fall. Before the snow came, the dogs pulled Susan on a four-wheeled cart to get stronger. Granite cried and howled every time the team left him behind. He was determined to get better. Oh, that's so sad. Oh. Slowly but surely, Granite showed improvement. The veterinarian told Susan Granite could start running loose with the puppies. As winter came, Granite was back in the team, but only training with young dogs on shorter runs. Meanwhile, the main racing team was running many long miles under the northern lights. Still, every night after Susan returned, Granite would sleep on her bed. Gradually, his strength returned. The doctor was amazed at his progress. As a test of his recovery, Susan let him run a short race with the young dogs. Granite proved he was healthy by leading that team to victory. His determination, drive, and strength convinced Susan he could race the Iditarod again. But had his endurance come back? Could he finish the 1,000-mile race? The Iditarod started in early March. Granite was at the starting line, leading her team again. To win, they had to beat last year's champion. Day after day, the two teams raced, always close to each other. The trail turned out to be tough for Susan and her team. The sled broke, and many times they were lost, but Granite never faltered. Near the end of the race, the two teams were only 17 seconds apart. Susan and Granite were ahead, but suddenly the other team passed them and pulled away. Susan thought, well, I guess second place is okay. Then she looked at the dogs working so hard and remembered her promise to them. This is our year to win. She called out to Granite and he responded. They charged by the other team. Again, they had a small lead in the race. As they left an Eskimo village 100 miles from the finish line in Nome, a furious storm hit. Susan often could not see the trail, but Granite kept on going. Finally, the snow was blowing across the ground, so thick Susan couldn't even see Granite at the front of the team. Granite had to find the trail on his own. From time to time, he would get lost, so Susan would lean into the wind and walk up to the front of the team to help them regain the trail. Together, they went on. As the storm raged, you can kind of see it, Susan's arms were becoming frozen. She could barely hang on to the sled. They had to get to shelter soon. Granite saw that Susan needed his help. Finally, Susan couldn't move at all. Her arms were hurting so badly that she was beginning to lose hope. But Granite kept forging ahead. He knew Susan was in trouble, and it was up to him to get them through. The other dogs were following his lead. If he quit, they would too, and all would be lost. He kept going, step after step, on through the blizzard. Susan was quiet and hunched over the sled. This was it. Suddenly, they saw dim lights from the next checkpoint. They had made it through the blizzard. Susan and the team rested there, eating hot meals throughout the stormy night. In the morning, they ran the last 76 miles to Nome and won the Iditarod. All of the other teams in the race had been turned back by the storm and did not finish until 18 hours later. Susan and Granite had done it. They had won the Iditarod and set a new record time. The next 2 years, they won again, with Granite proudly leading the team. With Susan's love and Granite's strength, they'd become unstoppable. Now, those same people who had not believed in them said, it's no wonder they win the race because she takes the best care of her dogs and they take care of her. And there's a picture of her at the Iditarod. Epilogue. Granite won every race he entered at least once. In 1988, he became the only lead dog ever to win the Iditarod 3 times in a row. Granite retired from racing after Susan's 4th Iditarod victory. He traveled extensively with Susan and even went to the White House to visit the president. But his favorite place was always their cabin in the wilderness, where he watched the puppy teams head down the trails on their own adventures. Granite lived 17 and a half years and died in Susan's arms. Aww. Yes. All right, and that's a picture of the real Susan. She unfortunately passed away. I forget, I think she had cancer, but her family is still there. Her daughters are all grown up now and her son too. So anyways, the reason to read that, there's such a good, strong message. Does anyone think they know what the message of that story is? Cole, what do you think? Persevere. Persevere. Anything else? Ellie? Yeah, you can't listen to other people, right? You got to believe in yourself. Haley Booker?
Never give up.
Never give up. Madison? Work together. Yes, so many messages. Serene? Excellent. Care for others. Think about him. He was the runt. They said he'd never race again. And then he went ahead and he ran the Iditarod and won 3 times. So tomorrow we will continue our work with the Iditarod. I know you have a lot to share with me. I will try to give you time to do that. Mrs. Harrison's OG group is going to go with her. So if you are Charlie Van Rickley or Astria, would you leave our meeting and go join Mrs. Harrison for OG? If you were in my room and you do OG with Mrs. Harrison, you need to go with her now. Go ask her, you're with her. My group, we are gonna stay on. Okay, you can't right now. So the rest of us, here's what we are going to do. I am going to ask that. So we're going to get out of the Iditarod. If you go back to classwork with block, I should have put Amplify on here. Did I not, Mrs. Aubin? Okay, so Amplify. You guys know how to get to your Amplify, right? We are going to work on Amplify today. You should have your Amplify QR code on your folder. We are going to also, I'm going to pull groups today. So if you are remote, we're going to stay on because I'm going to pull some groups. I'm going to be introducing new books as well. So I'm going to start with Haley. I need to progress monitor Haley and Isabella. So I'm going to stop sharing. You guys can get on Amplify. Everybody else can get on Amplify. And then if you hear your name or if I call you, you'll be meeting with me in a small group. So I am going to quickly, let's see, gallery view. I'm gonna put you in a breakout room. So Logan, we're not doing one well. Nope, that's for Yale, not till next week. Thanks for asking. Haley or Isabella, who wants to go first with me? Haley, okay. Haley will do yours, and then Isabella, I'll invite you to the breakout room. Are you there, sweetheart? Huh, okay. Hopefully she'll be there in a minute. I'll join you, Haley. Hi, Isabella. I'm going to have you join me, okay, hon? See you there.